Welcome to TechConnect. The electronics industry sits at the middle of almost every modern innovation in recent history, yet right now they're facing some serious challenges and headwinds. From labor shortages to tariffs to geopolitical issues to AI and smart factories, as well as green, sustainable production, these manufacturers are having to rethink how they design, deliver, and develop new products and bring them to market. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today in a special episode around smart manufacturing. Dr. John Mitchell, the CEO of the Global Electronics Association, joined Rick Elliott, our president of Panasonic Connect North America, at the 2026 Apex Expo in Anaheim, California, for a very special on-site interview. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and right now, over to you, Rick.
Thanks, David, for the introduction. We're here with Dr. John Mitchell from the Global Electronics Association, and really happy to have you here, John.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
So before we even talk about the manufacturing industry and so on, what is your next triathlon or Ironman? I guess I'm a fitness person myself, but I'm very impressed with that.
You know, I haven't done one, an actual Ironman in a year and a half now, and I was flirting with one in July, but I just learned I may have a speaking engagement in Helsinki, so I might not be able to do it. But I'm trying to get back.
Well,
I've got marathons I'm doing. Those are a little easier. Don't have to carry a bike with me.
Well, thank you. I do marathons, and I couldn't imagine doing that. So it's great stuff. So let's talk about the electronics and manufacturing environment. Manufacturing is at the forefront of innovation, right? So when we talk about some of the geopolitical and trade impacts that we're seeing today, how is that impacting manufacturing, and how do they stay in front of the innovation?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it depends on who you are and how it's impacting you. As you think about larger companies have a more in-depth supply chain. There's more control. They have more facilities all over the world, and so they can adapt a little bit to trade, geopolitical, especially trade and tariffs. They have some maneuverability. If you're a small and medium-sized company in the manufacturing space, you're more limited. You're buying from the suppliers. You just have to pay the tariffs, and you're kind of stuck in that regard. The other thing that has really affected all of it is as a new tariff is announced or changes, and we've had a lot of them over the last 20 months or so, 18, 20 months, and everybody's customers wants to know the impacts of that, and so there's a waterfall effect. It's happening. So the customer's like, oh my gosh, there's a new tariff. They call up their suppliers and say, what does that mean for us? And then they have to talk to all of their down chain to understand the impacts of that. And the systems aren't designed for that frequent of changes. Typically you know about a trade offering that was going to happen months, maybe even half a year in advance, and you had a chance to get all that information. When it's happening at the speed it happened in 2025, that's taking a lot of resources to try to focus on that to get the responses that customers want. And in that regard, any resource draw means you don't have resources for other things. And I actually think it has had a little bit of a negative impact on innovation. We continue to have great innovation moving forward, but I wonder if we're spending resources in areas that could be better spent somewhere else.
Okay. So given some of those challenges, do you see companies looking to regionalize their supply chains to kind of de-risk in order to get ahead of some of these tariff issues?
Yes. When you talk about regionalizing their supply chains, yes. I don't see them all trying to build facilities in all regions, but at least have partners in all regions. So we call that strategic interdependence. So in some cases, you're going to say, I need a local facility here, and I'm going to invest to have it there. In other cases, you're going to say, I need a partner there. And so you don't necessarily have to build just to do that yourself. And that, to me is in this world, it's a balance between efficiency and reliability, right? So you want to have a local provider if you can, but sometimes the local provider might be small and you could have a local disruption. So you need an alternative source and maybe then another global. So you really need to be thinking at 3 to 4 sources that have different profiles of risk so that you can manage that risk as you go through in the supply chain.
So another area of concern is labor. So where is that going? We talk about automation, we talk about needing people, but yet labor shortages and driving automation is going to impact it as well?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I actually see a time, not terribly distant future, between the automation, robotics we're seeing coming, some of the great machines that you guys make, et cetera. They're doing more and more of the work. They're doing it better. They're doing it faster. They're doing it more efficiently. That's fantastic. So the skill that I think is missing and that we're going to try to fill is a lot in the technicians area. So how do you maintain those machines? How do you program them? How do you make sure that that interaction and the information is flowing there? That's where I think you're going to see most of the skills shortages going forward. Yes, there's other ones, but the operational ones, a lot of that is going to become automated. And that's not a bad thing. It's just we need to be making sure that we're providing the skills to the operators of today so that they can become the technicians of tomorrow.
Right. So then talking about that and machines speaking to one another, interoperability, where are we going with that? When is, like, where do you see that headed?
Yeah, so we have an IPC standard called the Connected Factory Exchange that we've been using in the industry for a few years now. There's combinations of that with like Hermes and other things. So there's a lot of that connected factory that we try to make very easy for any company to adopt. We're seeing a lot of that adoption. That's the beginning of it. But the proprietary network thing is the biggest challenge that I think out there. So I haven't run into a factory yet that buys all of any one person's equipment. There's always have to have that interoperability, and that's really where we're trying to offer a solution on that in terms of as the Global Electronics Association. But it's coming. I mean, it has to come. Think about trying, as we try to bring AI into our production environments to take all advantages of that, it needs access to that information. And if you get it someplace but not another, it's not going to do as good a job.
So are we at that 4.0 scale tipping point at this point? Where do we see mass adoption? You talk about automation, we talk about AI, and we talk about smart factories. So when are we at that 4.0 tipping point?
I think depending on the size of factory, you're already there. In the larger companies, they're doing amazing stuff. I actually question some of it. I see some of these guys using robots to go get parts, to bring them to the machines, to load them. And I'm like, how can that be cost effective? But it is. And so they're really getting to the point where, what do they call it? Lights out facilities?
Lights out, yep.
Right, where I don't have to have somebody there that needs a light. And there are facilities running that are so close to that. Now, that's the larger organizations. Your smaller organizations, say under 100 or 200 million dollar organizations, that's still going to be a challenge. You just don't have the resources to invest in that. And so, you know, just like the robotics that we're seeing coming out right now, a humanoid robot right now today is only about $5,000. Fast forward 5 years, if it's $200, now that changes a lot of things just in the scale of cost. So we're seeing that trend. And in, you know, back in my days at, actually working in industry, you know, we were building radios, and we contrasted radios to the cost of vehicles. Sure. Vehicles have continued to go up in price, and yet we offer more features, and our costs kept going down in the electronics industry. So we're in a challenging space in the small consumer side of things, and that's actually a great thing, because for the same dollar amount, you may be paying the same, but even in your products, you're offering more and more benefits, you know, and they're not like suddenly paying. I'm pretty sure you're not charging 10 times more, even though you're providing 10 times the benefit. You probably wish you could.
That's exactly right.
But the industry just doesn't allow that. We always have to raise our capabilities, and there's very little raising of the price that we're able to do for that.
Okay. So AI is the buzzword in the industry, whether you're in electronics, manufacturing, corporate America. So where is AI today, and where do you see it 5 years from now?
Yeah, AI today. First off, AI today is really bugs the crud out of me. Here's why. There's two types. One is the marketing version of AI that isn't AI at all. They're like, oh, we've been doing AI for 15 years. I'm like, no, you're not. That's not really AI. But I have that same argument about, you know, phones that claim 5G and they're not actually doing the full 5G, you know? Yep. So there's the engineer in me that wants to argue that point. But in 5 years, so where are we today in AI? the chat GPTs types of functions of the world, they're good. They're providing solid benefit. Agentic AI has a lot of potential, and it has potential in certain areas, and it's growing into more. I mean, I get excited, from an entrepreneurial perspective. If I was starting up a new company today, and I could utilize AI, well, instead of me just sweat equating it out, say, I've got 3 hours tonight, I'm going to work on this new business, I can create 1,000 workers that work while I'm doing my full-time gig and help on that. So there's a lot of things that are really happening you're going to find these solopreneurs out there that really feel like they've got a staff of 1,000, whereas that was never possible before. For, $50,000 to $100,000 a year, they can pay a really solid engine to do that. And that's amazing to me. So in our industry, you're starting to see those functionalities come into machines, into analytics. We've been collecting data for years, and we haven't been able to do as much with it because it was time intensive. Well, AI is helping us look at that data more quickly and if we can analyze it more quickly, now we can respond to it. And then you get, where do I see it in a few years? 5 years seems like forever away because it wasn't even around 5 years ago.
That's right. It's a lifetime.
They were saying that we weren't going to have, the virtual assistant that would, do all our work for us until like 2030, and we're close to it today. It works on your laptop or what have you. A little dangerous on OpenClaw, but they'll figure that out. So in 5 years, it's really hard to say. Maybe I see it in more embedded into your machines, and you're verbally interacting with them, and they're taking digital inputs. So like in terms of your customer requirements, they're flowing right into your machines, and the machines are configuring themselves. They're saying, okay, talk to the robot, bring me my parts, load the reels, take that reel, build the board, check the board, go forward. Don't really have much else to do other than you're just getting reports out saying, okay, it's good, it's bad, et cetera. Instead of the AI is going to control your red, yellow, and green. And when it sees the red, it's going to take it off and say, oh, I can repair this because I've got a robot that actually handles the soldering thing that does that. And in 5 years, if that robot's $200, that's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
Even at $5,000, it's still pretty amazing.
So how does that change in companies going forward with upskilling employees and getting the employees that can run in a digital manufacturing type of setting?
That is exactly the challenge. And it's really about, we have to continually be investing in our people because what they're required to do is constantly changing. The days of sitting there saying, oh, I work in this job and I do this task are over. But leveraging AI and saying, okay, now here are all the tasks that I can do. I talked to a programmer, a friend of mine, younger guy, of course. He's like, well, I can't tell you the last time I actually wrote code. I check all of Claude's code. I do 10 times the work, but I'm not actually programming it anymore. And so it's that mentality where these are tools. I'm going to date myself a little bit here. Back on an old typewriter, we used to type that and you'd have to white out mistakes, or if you're typing a 20-page dissertation and you, on page 12, you forgot to include a paragraph. Well, guess what? From 12 to 20, you're retyping all of those pages because they didn't work. Now, word processors solved that for us. To me, that's, and then spell checking and all of that grammar, referencing things. AI is it's just another accelerator for us. We're going to learn how to interact with that in so many different ways that it's going to fundamentally change. I liked we had a keynote presenter this morning. He talked about, he likened it to Edison. He said, if you had been an Edison, you would have said, okay, look, I got light when the light bulb turned on. And the real answer was, no, I got electricity that changes the infrastructure of how we do everything. AI, instead of being a search engine or a way to answer things, is going to become an infrastructure that impacts everything that we do, and it's hard for us to imagine looking back 5 or 10 years from now that we could have, understood what it meant.
Yeah, it's hard to reimagine the imaginable in everything, right, with the acceleration of technology.
It's so fast.
Yeah, it's really fast. So then technology evolves, the world evolves, things move forward very rapidly. But sustainability, is extremely important. Given some of the challenges with AI, given the power consumption, the water consumption, what are companies doing, or how do you see sustainability impacting technology in companies' development of smart manufacturing settings?
Yeah, first, I want to highlight what we've already done. For the last 30 years, we've gotten, as an industry, we've gotten so good at becoming more efficient. You have plants that are taking in water and recycling it, and they put it out cleaner than it came in. So we're doing good work. We've continued to work, but it's not enough. We need to do more. Energy consumption, these AI server farms will solve it. I'm an optimist. I mean, I've seen enough changes in this industry from, where we started off like, wow, DVD is amazing, to like, oh my gosh, I can stream this on my phone from anywhere and get anything I ever wanted to see available to me. So we're problem solvers. This electronics industry is in the business of taking what seems like an ununderstandable problem and taking it piece by piece, and then you look back 5 years and it's like, that's not a problem at all. So I think we'll solve these AI server farms. Today, yes, their energy sucks. They just consume massive amount of memory and energy, etc. We'll get smarter. We'll find ways to do that cooler. We'll find ways to do it more compressed. We'll find ways to use fiber optics so that it's just doesn't generate the heat. So I'm a big believer that we'll innovate our way out of this challenge that we're seeing on the horizon.
Yeah, I have a tendency to agree with you in that regard. We are a very innovative society, and we move technology at a very rapid pace. So maybe final words. Sure. What advice would you give those in the manufacturing world today? What are the things that they should be looking out for, the things to think forward, to think ahead about?
Yeah. First, it's all good news. This is the best industry in the world to be involved in. I joke each year in January or usually end of December, sit there and go, I'm not sure electronics are going to be around next year. We're going the way of the pet rock. It's all over. Electronics are involved in every single industry in the world. We are the lifeblood of innovation. And so whether you're in AI, agriculture, automotive, it doesn't matter. Electronics are there. They're there for you. And so that's my first message. Be positive. This is a great industry. We're making great changes. What can you do to be ready for the future? Learn. You've got to keep learning. Keep improving yourself. Keep challenging the status quo. When you're in your companies, so individual learning, but there's also company learning. All right, we've done it this way. Don't assume that the next way is just doing it faster. Maybe we need to do it differently. And so keep challenging your assumptions as you go forward.
Thanks, John. It was great having you on. We talked about a lot of different things about innovation, technology, AI, sustainability, and really want to thank you for your time.
It's my pleasure. That's what we're here for, and it's great being here on the show.
Fantastic. Thanks again. And I'll turn it back to you, David, in the studio.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell, for sharing your insights into the global electronics manufacturing industries as well as smart factories. And thanks to Rick for hosting the special interview on site at the Apex 2026 Expo. To our audience, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Please stay connected with us as we connect you to the latest in technology.